Alex had never expected his day to begin with something so delicate. He was a simple engineer, working on the human-alien space station located on the edge of human-controlled space. His life usually revolved around repairing broken machinery, calibrating sensors, and occasionally dealing with the temperamental AI units that ran the station. It was repetitive work, but it was honest work, and Alex liked it that way. That morning, however, his supervisor had handed him a task that made Alex pause. "You'll be taking care of the Veyron warrior's armor," the supervisor said, almost casually. "It's overdue for cleaning, and she prefers humans for this kind of precision work. Don't mess it up." Alex's eyebrows shot up. He had seen Veyron warriors before, and he knew they were not like humans. They were tall, strong, and proud, with a reputation for their fierce combat skills and strict code of honor. And the particular warrior whose armor he was about to wash, Kayla, was famous throughout the station for her victories in interstellar conflicts and her strict demeanor. "Me?" he asked, his voice betraying his surprise. "Why me?" "Because," the supervisor replied with a half-smile, "you pay attention to details and you don't get intimidated easily. That's exactly what she needs. Don't overthink it, just clean her armor, carefully." Alex accepted the challenge with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. He had worked on machines that could blow up the station if misaligned, so surely he could handle a set of armor. Yet, the thought of standing before a Veyron warrior, responsible for her very pride and symbol of honor, was different. He entered the storage room where the armor lay, and the first thing he noticed was the smell of smoke, metal, and battle. Kayla's armor was unlike any human armor he had seen. Each piece seemed alive with stories. The chest plate bore long, faint scratches that must have come from enemy blades. The gauntlets had dents that spoke of heavy combat, and the pauldrons were marked with small signs that seemed to indicate rank or achievement. Alex ran his fingers gently over the armor. Each mark told a story, and he felt a strange sense of responsibility. This wasn't just metal. This was Kayla's identity, her victories, her life on the battlefield. He set up his workspace, arranging cleaning cloths, specialized polishing compounds, and tools designed for fine detailing. He started with the helmet, brushing off dust and small scratches, careful not to disturb the intricate engravings etched along the edges. Hours passed. The process was slow, but Alex was meticulous. He could hear the quiet hum of the station around him, punctuated by distant conversations and the occasional clatter of machinery. Cleaning the armor required patience, but Alex found it oddly calming. It was meditative work. He could focus on the curves, the dents, the small imperfections, and in doing so, he felt connected to someone he had never met. Then came the moment he least expected. The door slid open, and Kayla entered. She was taller than he imagined, with a presence that could fill the room without a word. Her Veyron features were striking: sharp cheekbones, deep amber eyes, and a posture that screamed discipline and confidence. She wore a simple training outfit, leaving her armor behind, but the aura of a warrior followed her like a shadow. Alex's hands froze mid-polish. He had imagined her before, of course, but nothing compared to the reality. She observed him quietly, her eyes scanning the armor, then him. There was an intensity in her gaze that made Alex feel both nervous and strangely calm at the same time. "You're careful," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. Alex swallowed and nodded. "I try to respect the work and the history," he replied, gesturing to the armor. "Every mark tells a story." Kayla's eyes lingered on him for a moment longer than necessary. Alex wasn't sure if she was judging him or simply curious. "Most humans do not understand that," she said finally. "They see armor as a tool, not as a record of honor." Alex felt a mix of pride and anxiety. "I've always believed that details matter," he said, "even small ones." A small, almost imperceptible smile touched Kayla's lips. It was brief, fleeting, but it caught Alex off guard. The warrior's reputation as a cold and strict figure seemed at odds with the warmth he glimpsed in that instant. As he continued to work, Kayla watched silently. She moved closer occasionally to inspect his technique, and Alex noticed she had a certain rhythm in her observation, almost as if she were evaluating his character without speaking. He polished each piece with care, buffing out small scratches and restoring the metallic sheen that had dulled from battles and space travel. While working on the gauntlets, Alex's hand brushed lightly against one of the dents. He hesitated, feeling a strange responsibility. These weren't just imperfections, they were victories, moments of survival. He adjusted his touch, pressing gently but firmly, and in that moment he felt a connection to Kayla he couldn't explain. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't yet, but it was profound. He respected her not only as a warrior but as a being whose life had shaped the universe in ways humans rarely noticed. Kayla shifted her weight, her gaze fixed on him. She spoke, more softly this time. "You treat this armor almost like a living thing." Alex nodded, unsure why he was saying so much. "Because it is," he replied honestly. "It's a record of you, and every record deserves respect." Her eyes softened slightly. The aura of authority she carried was still present, but now there was curiosity, almost admiration. She stepped back, allowing him space, but the way she looked at him made Alex feel as though she was seeing him in a way few had ever seen anyone. Hours turned into an entire afternoon. The polishing, cleaning, and careful examination became almost ritualistic. Alex was careful to maintain his distance, but Kayla seemed unbothered by his presence. Occasionally, she offered a small comment or adjustment, but mostly she observed. By the time Alex finished, the armor gleamed under the station lights. It was as though the battles etched into it had been honored, not erased. Every scratch told its story clearly, every dent preserved the memory of survival and victory. Alex stepped back, exhausted but proud. Kayla approached slowly, inspecting her armor as if seeing it anew. She lifted the gauntlets, turning them over in her hands, then placed the helmet back on her head. The reflection of the station lights on the polished metal made her appear even more formidable. Then came the moment Alex would never forget. Kayla's gaze met his, steady, unwavering. There was an intensity in her eyes that made him forget his exhaustion, his nerves, and the hum of the station around them. He saw something there he didn't expect, acknowledgement, trust, and a hint of something deeper, something unspoken. Alex's heart raced. He had only washed her armor, only polished it, restored it, respected it. Yet the look in Kayla's eyes made him feel as though he had crossed some invisible threshold. He realized with a mixture of awe and panic that in her culture, his actions might have been interpreted as a gesture far more significant than he intended. Kayla tilted her head slightly, studying him, her amber eyes unwavering. She did not speak. There was no rush, no words to break the moment. She simply observed him, and in that silence Alex felt something shift between them, something unspoken but profound. Finally, Kayla stepped back, giving him a small nod of approval. Alex exhaled, trying to calm his racing heart. He had not meant anything more than to respect her armor, but he could not ignore the way she had looked at him, the way her eyes had lingered. As she left the room, her armor gleaming and reflecting her formidable presence, Alex stood there, realizing that life on the station had just changed in ways he could not yet comprehend. He had washed armor, yes, but in doing so, he had unknowingly touched something far more delicate and significant, the pride, honor, and trust of a warrior. And perhaps, just perhaps, he had crossed a line he had not even known existed. He leaned against the wall, rubbing the back of his neck, trying to process it all. He had not intended to make any grand gesture, certainly not a proposal of any kind. And yet, the look in Kayla's eyes haunted him. It was as if she had read his intentions before he even knew them himself. Alex knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, when he returned to the station and encountered Kayla again, nothing would be the same. He had entered that room thinking he was simply performing a task. Now he had been thrust into something far larger, a silent bond with a warrior who commanded respect across the stars. And in that quiet, unassuming way, he realized that even a small act, performed with care and honesty, could change the course of lives in ways no one could predict. The next morning, Alex arrived at the station with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. He tried to focus on his routine tasks, but the memory of Kayla's gaze from the previous day lingered in his mind. He had washed her armor, returned it spotless, and in the process, had felt something unspoken pass between them. Now every clank of machinery and hum of electronics reminded him of her presence. He was called to the communal hall, where Kayla awaited him. She was already there, adjusting her armor lightly and stretching her limbs in preparation for training. Despite the morning bustle of the station, she radiated a calm authority that made Alex feel both awed and slightly nervous. "You are coming with me today," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "I want to see how you work with equipment under different conditions." Alex nodded quickly, trying to mask his nervousness. "Of course," he said, following her to the training arena. He could feel the eyes of other station workers on them, some curious, others indifferent. Alex didn't mind. His focus was entirely on Kayla. The arena was large, filled with practice dummies, holographic targets, and various combat tools. Kayla moved confidently among the equipment, demonstrating techniques with precision and speed. She lifted weights, adjusted her stance, and ran through a series of maneuvers that left no doubt of her skill. Alex watched closely, noting the elegance in her movements. Each motion was purposeful yet fluid, and even in moments of power, there was a grace that spoke of discipline and training. "See these weights," she said, handing him a small, polished tool. "Even the smallest component matters. A loose strap, a weak joint, a scratched surface, any of these can change the outcome of a fight." Alex accepted the tool, nodding. "Attention to detail is important," he said, glancing at her armor. I understand that more now, seeing it in action." Kayla's amber eyes flicked to him briefly, and Alex felt a jolt. There was a hint of amusement in her gaze, though her face remained serious. "You are different from most humans," she said. "Most would not notice the fine details. They would rush through the work or worse, ignore it entirely." Alex shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant though his heart raced. "I've always believed that small things matter," he replied. "Sometimes they matter more than the big things." Kayla studied him silently for a moment, then nodded. She handed him a piece of her gauntlet, worn and scratched from a recent mission. "Check this," she said simply. "Make sure it is functional. You will have 5 minutes." Alex examined the piece carefully. He ran his fingers over the dents and scratches, checking the integrity of the material, the alignment of the joints, and the subtle grooves that indicated wear. He tightened small screws, polished the surface, and ensured that nothing would fail during combat. As he worked, Kayla observed him closely, leaning slightly forward, her expression unreadable yet attentive. When he finished, she inspected the piece herself, turning it in her hands. Alex held his breath. He had done his best, but Kayla's standards were high and he could not predict her reaction. "This is acceptable," she said finally, her voice calm but carrying weight. "You understand more than I expected." Alex exhaled, relief flooding through him. He wanted to smile, but he restrained himself, sensing that any overt display of emotion might seem improper. As the morning continued, Kayla invited him to assist in checking her weapons and training equipment. They moved through the arena together, Alex performing repairs, adjustments, and maintenance, while Kayla demonstrated techniques and practiced combat moves. Despite the intensity of the work, Alex noticed a subtle shift in her demeanor. She seemed more relaxed around him, her movements flowing with a rhythm that suggested trust. At one point, Kayla handed him a long staff, a training weapon designed to test precision and reflexes. "Hold it like this," she instructed, demonstrating a stance. "Balance and control are more important than strength." Alex mimicked her stance, trying to keep his nerves under control. Kayla moved beside him, correcting minor mistakes in his posture. Her hand brushed his shoulder lightly, a contact so brief that it could have been accidental, yet the warmth of it lingered. Alex's heart thumped in his chest. He was not sure if she had meant to make contact or if it was purely functional, but in that instant, he felt a connection stronger than words could convey. "You are learning fast," Kayla said, her voice softening slightly. "Most humans would struggle with even basic movements." Alex tried to respond calmly. I pay attention," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. He was acutely aware of the proximity between them, the way she moved with confidence and the subtle grace in her gestures. Kayla glanced at him, her expression unreadable, then turned back to the arena. "Attention matters," she said, repeating her earlier lesson. "Even the smallest details can change outcomes. Remember that in life as well as in combat." They continued training for hours, moving from weapons to armor, from strategy drills to sparring exercises. Alex's respect for Kayla grew with each passing moment. He saw not only her strength but her intelligence, discipline, and unwavering commitment to her people. And Kayla, in turn, seemed to recognize something in Alex that others often overlooked, a combination of patience, focus, and genuine respect. During a brief pause, Kayla handed Alex a cloth and gestured toward her armor. "Wipe this down," she said. "A warrior's equipment must always be ready." Alex took the cloth and began polishing the metal carefully. He noticed the intricate patterns etched into the surface, the small marks of past battles, and the subtle signs of wear that indicated her skill in combat. As he worked, Kayla leaned against a nearby wall, watching him silently. There was no judgment in her gaze, only a quiet observation that made Alex feel both nervous and oddly comforted. "You handle it well," she said after a moment. "Not many humans would care enough to notice the details." Alex shrugged, trying to appear modest. "I just respect what it represents," he said. "It's more than metal. It's a record of you, your victories, your survival." Kayla tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You understand more than I thought," she said softly. "Most would never see it that way." There was a long pause. Alex felt the weight of her gaze and struggled to find the right words. I don't mean to overstep," he said finally. "I just want to do the work right." Kayla's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "You are not overstepping," she said. "You are showing respect. That is rare." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of training, polishing, and conversation. Alex found himself talking more freely than he ever had with anyone, explaining small details about his work, sharing observations about the station, and even joking lightly to break the tension. Kayla responded in kind, her usual stoicism giving way to occasional amusement and curiosity. By the time they finished, Alex was exhausted, but there was a sense of satisfaction that went beyond physical labor. He had not only helped maintain the warrior's equipment, but had also forged a connection built on respect and understanding. Kayla, in turn, seemed more at ease around him, her gaze lingering longer than necessary, her body language subtly signaling trust and interest. As they prepared to leave the arena, Kayla paused and looked at Alex. "You have done well today," she said. "I trust you more than most." Alex blinked, taken aback. "Thank you," he said, unsure how to respond to the weight of her words. Kayla nodded and turned, her armor gleaming in the station lights. Alex watched her go, feeling a strange mix of pride, nervousness, and anticipation. He realized that his simple act of care, washing and maintaining her armor, had grown into something more significant. In the eyes of a proud Veyron warrior, he had shown respect, patience, and understanding, and in return he had earned a place of trust. Later, as Alex returned to his quarters, he replayed the day in his mind. He remembered the way Kayla had watched him, the subtle touches, the quiet acknowledgement of his efforts. He felt something stirring within him, a feeling he could not yet name. He had only followed instructions, only done his work carefully, but somehow in the process, he had become part of something larger, an unspoken bond with a warrior who commanded respect across the stars. Alex realized that the station, the battles, and the daily routines had changed for him. Every glance from Kayla, every small gesture, seemed charged with meaning. He had entered the arena thinking he was merely assisting a warrior with her equipment. Now he understood that actions, even simple ones, could carry weight far beyond intention. And somewhere deep inside, Alex knew that the next time he saw Kayla, he would not be able to act normally. Their relationship had shifted in subtle, profound ways, and he could not predict what would come next. All he knew was that he had glimpsed a connection that was rare and precious, a connection born from respect, trust, and the quiet understanding that sometimes the smallest gestures speak louder than words. The following days on the station passed in a blur of activity, yet for Alex, time seemed to move differently whenever Kayla was near. He returned to his usual tasks, repairing machinery and calibrating equipment, but his mind constantly wandered back to the Veyron warrior, whose armor he had cleaned and polished. Her gaze, her words, and the subtle gestures that had accompanied their interaction stayed with him like a quiet, persistent hum in his chest. Kayla, for her part, seemed more at ease around him. She continued her rigorous training and missions, yet she made small allowances for his presence. When she needed armor adjustments, she would quietly call him over. When she tested new weapons, she often allowed him to observe or assist. It was not a favor, it was trust. And in Veyron culture, trust was the foundation of everything: alliances, friendship, respect, and even more delicate bonds. One evening, Alex was called to the observation deck. The station lights glimmered like distant stars reflected on polished glass, and the hum of the engines provided a calm background. Kayla was already there, leaning against the railing, her armor cleaned and shining from her daily maintenance. The deck was quiet, almost private, a place where the rush of the station seemed to fade into the background. "You came," she said, turning her amber eyes toward him. There was no judgment in her voice, only acknowledgement, a recognition that he had responded without hesitation. "I did," Alex replied, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. "You asked." Kayla's expression softened slightly and she motioned for him to come closer. "I wanted to talk," she said simply. Alex followed, aware of the weight in her tone. She was not known for casual conversation. Every word she spoke carried intention. He could feel it now in the quiet space between them. "Sit," she said, and Alex chose a spot nearby, careful to respect her personal space. He noticed the way the light glinted off her armor, highlighting the scratches and dents that he had carefully cleaned days before. Each mark now seemed even more significant, a testament to battles survived and lessons learned. "You have done well," Kayla said after a pause. "Not just with the armor, but everything. You pay attention, you understand. That is rare among humans." Alex swallowed. I try to do my best," he said, trying to keep his tone casual. Yet inside, he was aware that this conversation was different from any he had had with her before. Kayla studied him for a long moment, her eyes searching. "Most would not notice the details," she said. "Most would treat the armor as tools, not as records of life and experience. You see more. You understand more. That is why I trust you." Alex felt a warmth in his chest, an emotion he could not name. It was more than pride. It was recognition, acknowledgement from someone who had lived through battles he could only imagine. "I respect you," he said finally, "and what you've done, and what you stand for." Kayla's gaze softened further, and for the first time she allowed a faint smile to touch her lips. "Respect," she said quietly. "That is good, but trust is earned over time." "You are earning it," Alex nodded, unsure of what else to say. The air between them was charged with something unspoken, something beyond words. He remembered the way her hand had brushed his shoulder in the arena, the way her eyes had lingered on him during their training. He realized that unintentionally he had become part of her life in a way he had not anticipated. For the next hour, they talked quietly, sharing stories of their experiences. Kayla spoke of past battles, of missions that had tested her in ways few could understand. Alex shared his experiences as an engineer, the challenges of maintaining life on the station, and the small victories that came from careful, patient work. Through it all, a bond grew between them, subtle but undeniable. Kayla's amber eyes occasionally softened when she looked at him, and Alex found himself watching her movements, noticing the grace in her stance and the quiet power in her gestures. He realized that the admiration he felt was not just for her as a warrior, but for her as a being who had survived, thrived, and carried the weight of her people with honor. As the conversation wound down, Kayla stood and adjusted her armor. She turned to him, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You have done more than wash my armor," she said softly. "You have shown care, patience, and respect. Those are qualities I value, more than I expected." Alex felt a strange mix of pride and nervousness. "I didn't mean to," he began, but Kayla raised a hand to stop him. "Intentions matter less than actions," she said. "Your actions speak for themselves, and in my eyes they carry meaning." Alex blinked. He had only washed her armor, had only performed a simple task with care and diligence. Yet now, in her presence, it felt as though his actions had been transformed into something far more significant. Her words, her gaze, the subtle way she regarded him, it was as if he had crossed a threshold without even realizing it. Kayla took a step closer, and Alex's heart raced. There was no rush, no dramatic gesture, just a quiet closeness that made every nerve in his body alert. She studied him silently, her amber eyes reflecting the soft lights of the station. Alex felt a wave of emotion he could not fully identify. "You have earned something few do," she said finally. "Trust, respect, perhaps more. I do not speak lightly, human. But your actions have weight in my eyes." Alex swallowed hard. He realized then that in Veyron culture, gestures carried profound meaning. His careful cleaning of her armor, his attention to detail, his patient respect, they were not just acts of service. They were symbolic. And now he understood the look in her eyes from the first day he had completed the task. She had interpreted his actions as something far greater, a silent proposal of commitment, even if he had never intended it. I don't know what to say," Alex admitted. "I only wanted to do my work properly. I didn't mean for anything else." Kayla's expression softened into something gentle, almost tender. "You need not speak," she said. "Words are less important than understanding. I see your intentions even if you do not see them yourself." That is enough. For a long moment, they simply stood there, gazing at each other. The station around them faded into background noise, the hum of engines and distant chatter irrelevant compared to the quiet intensity of the moment. Alex felt a connection deep and unspoken, a bond forged not through declarations or ceremonies, but through respect, care, and shared experience. Kayla took a step back, adjusting her armor once more. "Tomorrow," she said, "we continue training. But today you have proven yourself, in more ways than one." Alex nodded, still trying to process the weight of her words. "Thank you," he said quietly. I will continue to do my best." Kayla inclined her head slightly, a silent acknowledgement of his statement. "I expect nothing less," she replied. "But remember, what you do, it matters. Small actions carried with care can change the way others see you. You have learned that." As Alex turned to leave, he felt the lingering presence of her gaze on his back. It was not just observation. It was acknowledgement, respect, and something deeper, a silent communication that transcended words. He understood now that their relationship had shifted in ways he could not yet fully comprehend. Walking back to his quarters, Alex reflected on the events of the past days. He had entered Kayla's life by washing her armor, a simple act of care. And yet, in doing so, he had touched something profound, a part of her that valued trust, respect, and understanding above all else. He realized that even unintentional actions could carry enormous weight, shaping relationships and perceptions in ways he had never imagined. That night, Alex lay awake, thinking of Kayla. Her words, her gaze, her subtle gestures, they played in his mind like a silent symphony. He realized that what he had thought was a simple interaction had become a turning point, a moment that would define their bond from this day forward. He smiled to himself, a quiet, contented smile. He had not intended to propose anything, and yet, in the eyes of a proud Veyron warrior, he had done just that. And somehow, he knew that this was only the beginning. Their story, forged in respect, trust, and the smallest gestures, was only beginning to unfold. Alex rose the next morning with a sense of purpose. He knew that the days ahead would be filled with training, challenges, and perhaps moments of discomfort. But he also knew that the bond he had formed with Kayla was real, meaningful, and rare. He was determined to honor it, to continue earning her trust, and to understand the depth of the connection that had begun with something as simple as washing armor. When he returned to the arena, Kayla was already there, waiting. Her armor gleamed under the station lights, every mark and scratch a testament to her skill and experience. She looked at him with those amber eyes, calm, observant, and expectant. Alex felt a surge of resolve. He would continue to do his best, not just in work, but in understanding her, in respecting her, and in honoring the bond that had quietly formed between them. And in that quiet understanding, both human and warrior recognized something extraordinary, that even the smallest acts, performed with care and intention, could create connections that transcended words, gestures, and cultures. In that moment, Alex knew that he had not just washed armor. He had begun a journey, one of respect, trust, and an unspoken proposal that neither of them had anticipated, but both silently accepted.